So we've got a Monstera here that was literally left on the side of the road with a sign that said free plant. This was in the fall, so this guy has withstood probably some 45 or 50 degree temperatures. I think we've got some root rot going on in here. It's obviously never been trained to any kind of a moss pole. So we're going to dig into this thing and see what we can kind of scavenge out of it. Let's take a closer look and see what we got going on. Guy was in pretty tough shape when it first got here. I believe this is one of those self-contained watering systems. You know, the water stays in the bottom of the pot, and these monsters don't like that at all. I actually drilled a hole. I drilled a couple of holes in this thing to drain some of the water out, because when I first got it, it was just waterlogged, and it was rotten. I mean, when I drilled those holes in, this brown stank water came out of here. It smelled like a swamp, and so I flushed it out heavily with water, and then I did actually water it with peroxide and water mixture to try to kill off some of that root rot. Which I typically don't like to do, but I knew eventually I was going to end up repotting this whole thing and rebuilding it. So I went ahead and I did the peroxide treatment. That's a whole nother discussion, why I don't typically like to do that if I don't have to. But here's the thing, this guy has never really been trained. You know, you got these big long branches sticking out the side. It's never been trained up to a moss pole, and unfortunately these are so thick right now, I could never really get these to straighten up. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut some of these off of here. We're going to leave these couple in the middle, because believe it or not, I've had this thing for a couple of months now, and it is actually starting to grow out some new leaves here, you know, in the middle. And I think I'm sure these can be trained. This one's off color. Some of these are a little off color, and I don't know if that's a nutrient issue or a root rot issue. We're going to pull this thing right out of this pot eventually too, and really dig in here and kind of see what we find, and take this one step at a time. And I think what's ultimately going to end up happening is we're going to end up with a bunch of cuttings. We're going to take some leaf cuttings and some stem cuttings and try to get them to reroot. We're going to rebuild this into more of a central plant, stick some kind of a support mechanism in there, and we're going to pull this thing out of the pot and see what we got going on with its actual root system. All right, so we're going to start by just cutting off some of these big lanky stems. And I'm going to just for now put them in a bucket of lukewarm water, keep them wet. I definitely want to try to get some cuttings off of this. We're feeling that the roots are not in as good a shape as they should be in under the circumstances. So let's just start with that. And just like that, we now have a plant that could be trained into an upright form with proper support. And now let's see if we can get this thing out of the pot and see what kind of mess we have in here. Alright, we're back. We're going to go around the edges of this thing with a knife. Don't tell my wife I'm using her kitchen knife for this. Hey, I am surprised. I don't think this is a pot-in-pot system. It looks like it's just a plain old pot. I'm happy to see that. Oh, now there's something. Oh, it's a rock. That's what I was hitting with my drill bit. I was hitting this rock, so I wouldn't go through. And the roots on this guy really don't look all that bad. I mean, there's some funk in here. Oh, there's a bunch of rocks in here. Alright, let's get those rocks out of there. We don't need those. And there definitely is, yeah, there's some rot in here for sure. You know, some of these roots are nice and white, but some of them, you can see they're just kind of shelling off of here. And they're rotting. So that is definitely something we're going to have to address. So I'm glad I got this out of the pot. At least now we know what's going on. Alright, it's not as bad as I thought. I really thought this was going to be a lot worse. And I think what we're going to do right now is just trying to physically clean some of the, you know, the rotten stuff just kind of comes off. It just kind of peels off of here. And we're going to try to pull some of that out of here. Rotten roots. But there are a lot of good roots in here, so I think we got a good chance with this. Okay, when you're dealing with root rot usually means the plant's been overwatered. It's given more water than it could absorb. And what happens is, with too much water, you run into an anaerobic situation. There's not enough oxygen in the soil because the water forces the air out. And it opens the door to all kinds of non-beneficial bacteria. And things just start to fall apart. So now this plant is not as bad as I was expecting it was going to be. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to try to physically remove as much of the rotted stuff as we can. And then I'm probably going to actually drench this in a bucket with a very broad spectrum fungicide, bactericide. Usually root rot is bacterial, but it can be fungal. So we will probably end up just kind of doing like a plant dip. I'll get another 5-gallon bucket up here. We're going to dip this guy in I'm probably going to use the Fizan 20. Alright, so with root rot, you want to remove all the nasty. You want to get all the nasty stuff out of there. And then try to make sure you kill off anything that might be remaining. A lot of folks use hydrogen peroxide, and you can use hydrogen peroxide. It works pretty good. I actually have some what's called Fizan 20, which is an actual plant bactericide, fungicide, very broad spectrum. It's in the family of quaternary salts. It's kind of chemically, it's kind of sort of similar to Lysol, but it's made for plants. It's used for greenhouses, for cleaning pots and tabletops, but it actually does have a drench label on it for plants. I know a lot of people that grow orchids, I believe, use it sometimes, and so since that is an actual thing labeled for plant use, unlike a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, I'm going to actually use that. I'll go grab that. We'll grab a 5-gallon bucket and we'll get this thing drenched up. In my opinion, I do a lot of plant healthcare work, and soil problems are probably the hardest ones to deal with. Now this is a house plant, and I can just pull this out of the ground and out of the pot and open it up and clean it up, but when you're dealing with plants out in your yard, you don't so much have that option. And they can be some of the most difficult things to deal with. But we're gonna see what we can do with this. Get it cleaned up and in a new pot. Stand up for me, buddy. There you go. And get it supported, see if we can't rebuild this thing. Alright, we're back. We got this guy cleaned up. We sloughed off a lot of the old, rotten, nasty roots that were in there, leaving these nice white roots. That's what we want to see, nice white roots like this. But now we're going to do a dip. We're going to dip this in Fizan 20. Fizan 20, this stuff right here. It's used for sterilizing pots, and it's used in the nursery industry a lot. Now, here's the thing. The problem with this Fizan 20, let me get this guy out of here and get him into the bucket here. The problem with this Fizan 20 is that it is non-selective. It is going to kill everything in this plant and in this soil. The good and the bad. There we go. We got that guy in there pretty good. So we're going to just let this soak for a couple of minutes in that bucket of water in Fizan 20. It's going to kill everything, So now the goal is going to be to get this guy potted up, and then what we want to start doing is replenishing this with good bacteria, beneficial bacteria, because plants really need that. You want that in your soil, but you want to get rid of the bad stuff first. It's kind of like taking antibiotics. You take it because you're sick, but it kills off a lot of the good probiotics in your body. Same kind of thing here. So we're going to get this guy drenched, let it sit for a couple of minutes in this mixture. We're going to pull it out and we're going to repot it. Alright, so we pulled this guy out of that Fizan 20 solution, which was there. I just slapped it into that bucket so it can drip dry for a few minutes, so we can get it ready. The original pot I'm going to reuse. That's the same pot it was in when we got it. And I'm going to actually reuse it. I don't have any I have pots that are much bigger than this. I have pots that are much smaller than this, but I don't have anything that's really adequate. So we did wash thoroughly and sterilize this pot to make sure that it's nice and clean. So now we're just going to take this guy and we're going to basically just put him back in the pot. And I drilled some proper drainage holes in the bottom of this guy. This thing had no drainage holes at all in it. Those holes that were on the side, I put in it when we got it. But that's probably a big part of the problem with this thing, is that this was just a big plastic bucket with no holes. It couldn't drain, and Monsteras, they like drainage. So we're going to get this guy potted up back into that pot, and then we're going to kind of move on from there. Alright, so some of those bigger, heavier chunks of stems that were growing out of control, we're going to save some of these. And we're actually going to try to root these. They've got nice rooting nodes on them already. So we're going to sprinkle these up with a little bit of rooting powder. And then what I'm going to do is I just got it's a big old plastic bag, some soil in there, keep it moist. You know, it's nice and damp in there right now. It's not muddy, but it's damp. And we're going to hit these with some rooting powder. We're going to stick them in the bag, just kind of lightly buried in the soil. We're going to put them in a warm spot and kind of see how they do. I'm hoping if these guys will root up for me a bit, we can make a few more plants out of it. So that's the goal. We're just going to kind of sprinkle these with some rooting hormone, gently tuck them into the bag, get a little soil on top, and we're going to keep these in a nice warm spot and monitor the moisture on them. I'll just seal the bag up just a little bit with like an elastic band or something, and open it up every once in a while and kind of see how. We have got these nice, beautiful leaves that we cut off that were growing like horizontally and were kind of out of control. So we clean these up a little bit. I think these two, if I can get these two to grow, I can kind of pull them together a little bit on a moss pole and let them take off like that, which would be really nice. When we trim these off, you notice we left a couple of these nodes here where roots can potentially grow from. So we're going to hit these with a little bit of rooting powder. We're going to put them in these pots here, get them watered up nice. When I am doing rooted cuttings, at least the first couple, maybe several waterings, I actually like to use like lukewarm water, just so that they have a little bit of extra temperature in there. Keep them nice and warm as much as you can. Hopefully, if this all works out, we're going to take that one kind of sickly, sad Monstera and try to make ourselves, I don't know, 7 or 8 plants out of it if we're lucky. Alright guys, here we are. We have 3 newly potted Monstera cuttings that hopefully we'll take. We'll get them watered up and in a nice warm spot, so hopefully they can take roots. The original plant is back in the original pot, and it looks quite a bit different. All those big lanky ones we took off and used for cuttings, and all we have left now is these smaller ones, and hopefully we've gotten rid of the root rot. We've drilled holes in the bottom of this pot for drainage, sterilized everything, and hopefully get this guy on its way. Alright guys, it's been about 3 or 4 weeks since I started working on this Monstera that we saved from the side of the road. This is the original plant. This was the original pot with 4 weeks, and it looks pretty good. I mean, the leaves look nice. You can see these leaves are nice and healthy, shiny, green. So I think we've probably whooped that root rot. I stuck a stake in here, kind of a temporary thing. I don't know what's going to come of this plant. It's going to need some training and whatnot, but so far so good. These are the cuttings, the actual cuttings that we took, and just kind of, you know, temporarily set them up in these nursery pots here. And I'd say they look okay. I mean, it's been a month, and this one here is actually pushing out a little baby new leaf. So I guess that's a good sign. Leaves look good. This one here is a little bit funky. Like it's kind of curled under a little bit, which I'm a little concerned about. But we'll give it time. We'll give them time. So far they look okay, healthy. They're not drying up or dried out yet. This is a west window, so they do get a fair amount of sunlight, and I put them on a heat mat. Keep that soil nice and warm, and hopefully that'll help to promote some additional root growth on these guys. We'll give them a couple more weeks, see how they do, and if they do look like they're really going to make it, I'll put them up into some nicer pots and pot them up a little more properly. All right, let's see what we got in here. These are the little cane pieces that we cut off. We put some rooting hormone on them. I have opened these up a couple of times to very quickly look at them. I wasn't real crazy about it. And I did water them a couple of times with the hopes that being in this bag they'd stay nice and moist. And I actually had them on the floor not too far away from my wood stove, so they stayed relatively warm. There's one. And we do have a little bit of growth right there, which I'm happy to see. There's still a little rooting powder on there. Well, we'll see what happens. It's not remarkably impressive, but it is what it is, you know. There's another one, and again, it does look like we have a little something popping out here. So I guess a little something is better than nothing. Maybe here too. I don't even remember how many are in here. I'm just gonna feel around, see what we got. This one, I'm not seeing much on this one. Not as far as any growth goes. Maybe we'll rinse them off and see how they look once they're wet and clean. And there's another one. That one does not look good at all to me. Nope, this one is rotted. Look at the rot in here. For some reason, this guy has just rotted away. So I don't think that's gonna do anything. Okay, well, this one is definitely going in the garbage. This one, you know, this one looks like it's got a little bit of, maybe a little rot in here too, but it might still be good. But, you know, we'll plant them up. We'll plant them up, maybe a little more rooting powder, and get them into a pot and see what happens. I don't know. It's all just for fun, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of having fun. And if I can get a few more plants to grow, bonus. If not, it is what it is. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Maybe we'll do a follow-up in another month or so and see how these things are doing. But in the meantime, we'll just take good care of them and see what happens. Take care.